Good evening. I'm Dr. Tapia from the English department, and it's my pleasure to be able to introduce to you tonight our guest writer. Before I do that, I would like to ask that you turn off your cell phones. I figured that one out. So I welcome all the students who've come and the faculty. Joining us from across the Atlantic is Dr. Jennifer A. McGowan. I've known about Jennifer ever since I came to Eastern 17 years ago. Her mother, who's sitting here, Dr. Marcia McGowan, who recently and lamentably for the English department recently retired, told me lovely things about her daughter over all those years. Over the years, I learned interesting news of Jennifer's life in England. And not too long ago, I learned that Jennifer is a poet. Her poems have appeared in Envoy, the Connecticut River Review, the Vermont Literary Review, Ascent, the Interpreter's House, Orbis, and elsewhere. Poet Gray Jacobic, Professor Emerita, also from our Department of English, says the following about Jennifer's first book of poetry. The bite is here, the sass, the taut lines rapidly tangled in their music, the slightly arch, yet scampering voice caught between rage and ecstasy. So, I name Jennifer A. McGowan a true descendant of the tribe of Plath. Well, Plath-ish, for these lyrics, dramatic monologues, and fairy tales are bedecked with wit, irony, bittersweet folly, and dictional shifts jazzy enough to make a reader dance. And these last all are McGowan's. I bought that book, Life in Captivity, and read every poem. I forgot my copy. There it is. It's in my purse. I bought that book, Life in Captivity, and was myself captivated. I don't believe that's what Jennifer meant by the title, but that's what happened nevertheless. Her poems, such as The Merry Maidens, The Maiden Without Hands, Pharaoh's Concubine, and others, showcase the poet's rich knowledge of classical mythology, medieval mythology, fairy mythology, and feminist ideals, all informing her craft and guaranteeing the reader an enticing escape in each verse. And for that reason, without further delay, I present to you Jennifer A. McGowan.
Now, I write with a lot of voices, and these voices are not necessarily my own. I write from the male viewpoint and female viewpoint, from the point of view of various mythological figures, from the point of view of the man on the street. They are not all me. Some of them may have a kernel of truth in them, but as my group, the poetry group, the Backroom Poets, have a saying, which is never let the truth get in the way of a good poem. So some of them have a kernel of truth, but they are actually nothing I have experienced. Now, a lot of people think that poetry has to rhyme or have meter. And I have my first poem, which is called The World of Men, which rhymes and has meter. And then I will have proved I can do it, and I'll move on to other stuff. This has as a basic premise a lot of the fairy mythology of England, which you don't need to know details about. If there's a word in it like boggart or redcap, it's just a type of fairy, proving that I've done my work, a lot of my work on my master's. Is there somebody who wants to come in? Come in, come in, come in. I haven't started.
Sorry.
No, don't worry. Have a seat. Please turn off your phones if you have them. While you're getting your seat, I'll just reiterate thank you to the students for coming. As I told the other people who are here, it prevents me from speaking solely in front of an audience who have known me since I was this tall. So this one is called The World of Men, and it talks a lot about fairy mythology and turns it on its head, because a lot of people think that fairies down the bottom of the garden are little twee things that, that dance with gauzy little wings. But really they're not. If you read fairy tales, they're nasty. You know, Titania and Oberon from Midsummer Night's Dream, if you read the stuff that Oberon's in, he's an utter bastard. He's not a nice guy. So this sort of turns the received stuff on its head. The world of men. There's boggarts in the hollow, there's redcaps in the glen. But Mum won't let me go to town for fear of meeting men. She'll let me walk the forest, she'll let me work the farm, but she won't let me go to town for fear I'll come to harm. Don't know if you know boggarts, but they're really quite tricksy. And if, like me, you've hair of gold, you're the joy of any pixie who pulls or pilfers, moans and shrieks, till you start at any sound. Once I got up on a slow-eyed horse, and it nearly got me drowned. Lord, I dearly do hate pukas. Good thing 'twas a shallow beck. A nixie saved me, but it cost the locket from my neck. Oh, why does my mum send me to wander hill and dale, when at every turn a goblin demands my home-brewed ale? There's elves in every coppice, washerwomen by the creek. If I ran from every fairy lord, I'd be running for a week. I've been poked, prodded, spun about, and pinched all black and blue, raced the wind, been kissed and teased, not just for a year, but 2. So, I'm going to town on Monday, despite my mother's curse, to try my way in the world of men. Can't be any worse. The next one I'm going to read is one that fooled my relatives into thinking that it happened. It didn't. It's just one I wrote. It's another dramatic monologue. I specialize in dramatic monologues, and I'll just let it speak for itself. It's called True to Nature. The stream that runs, burbles, onomatopoeia, etc., past the place where you'd get stones to skip, turns, at the oak tree, into a sneer, white with unsuppressed rage. Despite pleading and reasonability, it remains obdurate, or rather stretched over obduracy, its submerged rocks not needing to be guessed at. So, when I need to remember you, I come here, to this map of your face, this caricature drawn in wet leaves and false tears, where at last I can heave the heaviest rock to disrupt you, only to have it closed over as if I didn't exist. You always did say you were close to nature. I leave you there. I'm going to sit down for the next couple just so does my knees some good. This next one is called Vade Mecum. And as much as my mother doesn't like me to admit it, sorry, Mum, I do a lot of these things by exercise. I have my friends give me 5 words, and I try to incorporate all 5 words into a poem. And if they give me real of words, then I reserve the right to ignore them. One of them was palimpsest, which I found very difficult. So I've written this poem called Vade Mecum, but to be honest, I've forgotten what words it was that started it. But if you want to sort of write down what you think might have been the 5 words that started it, feel free. The title is a type of manual of Vade Mecum. It also means come with me. Vade Mecum. I carry you with me like a bruise, dark, tender, incompletely hidden. Loneliness is a secretive art. It can be flaunted, but in the open, discussed calmly over tea, it becomes something other than itself. A badge of pride, a medal cast from the pain that bore it. The hat you left, a tatty bookmark, an umbrella rattling in its stand. These are my manuals for remembering your touch, your voice, the way you giggled at mirrors, how you liked music loud. With each passing day, I sing your name more slowly, a hesitant litany, a half-remembered prayer, like a rosary dropped at the station, waiting for the final tread. The next one is a series of dramatic monologues, which I'm quite proud of. From the time I started writing them to the time they were accepted for publication was a grand total of 6 days, which I think is a new land speed record for poetry. I'm going to explain a little of it sitting down, and then I'll do the monologues standing up. It's called Troy, Seven Voices, and it's about the Trojan War in Greek history. Essentially, Helen of Troy, who was the most beautiful woman in the world, was abducted and taken to Troy from where her husband was, which is Sparta. And her husband got uppity at this and raised a whole host of people to go and raze Troy to the ground as a reasoned response to get his wife back. So tens of thousands of people, most of them, farmers who had been turned into things, and turned into soldiers, turned up. And there were some really primo warriors there. One of them was Achilles. Now, Achilles was a really big warrior, and he was one of the best warriors in the world. But that wasn't, oh, come in. That's all right. That wasn't his main talent. Achilles' main talent was for throwing hissy fits at the least provocation. So, for example, he didn't get the woman he wanted as a slave. So he threw a hissy fit, went into his tent, and refused to come out. Now, this was really detrimental to the Greek morale, and as a matter of fact, the Trojans started sweeping the Greeks from the field. But his friend, Patroclus, who is the first voice I have, put on Achilles' armor. Achilles had very distinctive golden armor, and he went out onto the field. So all of these people went, Achilles is here, and started running away. So he carved his way through the Trojans, and finally the big Trojan warrior Hector came out. And Patroclus went, right, Hector. If I bag Hector, well, it's big kudos to me. And he was promptly slaughtered. But, this managed to make Achilles come back into the fight. And then Achilles killed Hector, and as a reasoned response, instead of giving his body back, as is traditional, he tied Hector's body behind his chariot and dragged it at full speed round and round the Trojan walls. So they had to ransom Hector with his weight in gold just to get his corpse back for burial. Later, Achilles' son, Neoptolemus, threw Hector's baby son off the walls. Aren't they an enchanting family? And later, when Achilles was dead, he couldn't lie still. In fact, he threw a hissy fit because the girl he fancied wasn't dead with him. So, in fact, she was sacrificed. And that's Polyxena, who will be one of the voices I have. So, Troy, 7 voices. 1, Patroclus. Gold is heavy and chafes. Still, the fear of who I'm not is effective. The desperate pause as I approach, making the thrust easy, and then the soft sibilance of blood on the ground. Who'd have thought one dice game and a teenage crush would lead to these endless forays against these walls, this skilled impersonation? I've done more than 50, I bet. My arm is almost tired. I stretch as a Chiron Quartus and crack my neck and stride forward. At last, Hector. 2, Greek soldier. All we wanted was to get a glimpse of her. The one we'd come for. The one made fools of kings and warriors of farmers. Each morning before dawn, before the light could betray us, we'd scan the walls and the tower windows for a sight. We never got one. Throughout the years of fighting, those years of boy into man, we dreamed. Silently to each other, we'd relate our stories of her, the way she'd look sideways, and knees that never knew fear would buckle, how her eyes shone like lightning and burned, and how at the end, the one we'd all come to, we'd hear quiet footsteps, and the white fingers that closed our eyes would be soft as feather down, and one bright tear would be our swan song. 3, Scamander. Scamander is the river that flowed by Troy. I have carried this weary leaf from hoary mountain slopes over rocks, past thirsty roots and wading herons, past shoals of trout, silver-scaled, to this broad plain. Now my waters swell to flood. Armor and keepsakes sink. I bring the detritus of flesh with its seeping red to the receiving sea, where all burdens are absorbed and nameless. 4, Astyanax, who is the baby that Neoptolemus killed. Just a moment of flight was all there was. 5, Polyxena. Dear Achilles, I didn't want this. Not the fame, not the long blue gaze over my brother's body that drowned us. When I threw my bracelets down from the tower to make up Hector's ransom, I was throwing you away, knowing you'd not survive him long. I should have known a self-love as big as yours wouldn't rest in an easy grave. Even dead, you must get what you want. So I dress as if for my wedding, while Andromache and my women mourn. But let me tell you, my blood will bring you no peace. When I fall, I will fall with the weight of Troy, and my shade's arms around your neck will be a millstone. 6, Cassandra. Listen to me. Looks aren't everything, but they help. 16 and cursed by a god. Okay, that wasn't good. But once the walls fell and knives were everywhere, a tear-stained and pretty face was my ticket back to life. A trophy's not the best option. But as a princess, let's face it, I was born to belong to someone, whatever name you put on it. I look at these new and proud owners and see beyond them to their deaths. Some by women's hand, some by fire, others by neglect as war wounds infect and incapacitate. Agamemnon now, he goes home to a story they'll be telling for years. He's forgotten he married Helen's sister, who comes with her own price and a lifetime grudge of being second. The shadows of Troy are long. What they touch will falter. The gods must have tragedy. Speaking of which, my vision clouds again. I hear screams and tears and the thunk of the axe. It shouldn't come as a surprise that I'm as mortal as you are, but like you, I don't listen. 7, Hecuba. Ancient bitch, empty dugs, battling for scraps, for the smallest thing to crunch between blunted teeth. You'd think, wouldn't you, that 50 sons would be enough, that one would be left. Instead, pyre after pyre, when I even got that, and a husband cut down at the altar. An embarrassment of corpses. Not that I was embarrassed. They all fought well. We weren't the invaders. Only Paris, smitten, young, not old enough not to pray, believed a promise. He always was a fool, but he had the sweetest voice, and a smile would charm you every time. So, 50 sons dead. Good as. My daughters, I can't bear to think. I should have listened to Cassandra, looked that gift horse in the mouth, something, anything. But the gods, in their slanted pity, changed me to run through the night and whine. And I did run. To the bowels of boats hiding in cargo, then on land, through forests, valleys, even backyards if the night was thick enough. I followed the Greeks' bloody footsteps with my own raw ones. On these black slopes now, under a hunter's moon, I stalk their children and howl curses to ever darker and more ancient gods. Oh, good, there was no microphone interaction to explode things. It's always good when things don't explode. I'm going to read some poems now. I'm going to sit down again for them. That are about sort of my double life. I have a life in England, and then when I come back to visit my parents, I sort of pick up the strings of a life that knit together as if England never existed. And this is a pair of poems called Walking in the Afternoon, about living here, and also when my parents came to visit me in England. I used to live in a place called Malvern in Worcestershire, which is quite close to Shakespeare's Stratford-upon-Avon. And Malvern everything around Malvern floods, to the extent that one August I couldn't actually get more than 1.5 miles from my house without hitting floodwaters. And that's only because Malvern was up on hills. So this is a Malvern mystic parallel. The first one is mystic. Walking in the Afternoon, 1. Sometimes the breadth of the world startles me. New England is hewn out of granite. Generations broke their back on the soil. People still live at this ruined house. A man, hair grey, comes in from building a wall, strips the stained shirt from his back and calls for a drink. Later, his wife will make honey and herbs into a poultice to ease the pull of time on his body. 20 years earlier, she delivered her son herself, cries going unheeded in these woods, where nowadays coyotes gabble like partygoers and bittersweet springs up bright through the chimney breast. He died near his 14th birthday, winter sapping the strength from his lungs, devouring his breath. A bad time. He's buried here, not a church, stone carved by grief, a nearly expert hand honed by loss and by tilling the earth for rocks, trading them for pulses, grains, tubers, anything that will last until spring. He and his wife lived to be 60. Somewhere, their life is pieced into a quilt, Sunday bests and night clothes, rendered equal side by side. Now the saplings reach over this tumbled wall, their roots mine beneath. In the old sitting room, creepers unfurl their leaves in the sunshine. Poison ivy guards the last stair. This is all there is, and all there ever was. If I walked on, I would find a dozen other stories like this. That there is history is a testament to willfulness, to determination, to shape the unshapable. I need to be home before nightfall. Behind me, the song of a cardinal. I crush mushrooms underfoot, and the smell of old earth surrounds me. Animals rustle and hush. Home, I rock in my chair. The darkness is absolute. Raccoons scream. Bittersweet bursts on my mantle like a flame. Walking in the Afternoon too is based on my living in Malvern, as I said. Malvern is full of springs, and there are lots of pilgrimage sites there. Walking in the Afternoon too. The world turns. Ages past, these hills were islands, this path not even perhaps a track, being too close to the sea. Now every November we take refuge from the Severn in flood. Those same rains run down the hills and feed the springs. For 10, 20, 200 years, kestrels hovered, buzzards stoop and cry, larks cast their song through the greenery. This is my time. My feet tread in dappling shadow. My hands paint the foxglove and the tiny blue flowers no one I know can identify. My mind presses them as if in amber. No tread is too slow, nor gaze too lengthy, here where seasons trip and tarry. Quiet enfolds my mind. I remember how to smile. I come upon the well like a pilgrim. Seeking only water, I am granted every wish. And now, as Monty Python would say, for something completely different. This one is Just Like Flying. There's a reference to 69 in this being the 1 mile per hour less than the speed limit in Britain, which is 70. That's all it is, honest. My mother's sitting right there. That's all it is. Just like flying. My first boyfriend taught me to drive. First lesson on the dual carriageway. Lay it on 69, baby, and the pigs can't touch you. How to overtake in a burst of speed. Like flying, baby, just like. Single track lanes for courage and anticipation, then small towns on market day. Them yellow boxes, they're no good. Called fatzos, baby, always avoid the fatzos. I was never sure whose image was at stake. Go on, baby, he'll let you. His car costs way more to repair, you know? When finally we spun out, relaxed and white-knuckled, the inevitable wreck. But strangely enough, when it came to buckling down and getting serious, I passed first time. My PhD was working with the witchcraft texts of the 16th and 17th century. And in England and in the colonies, so in the United States, no witches were ever burned. They didn't burn witches, they hanged them, and in one case they pressed them to death, if you know of the Salem witchcraft trials and Giles Corey. And they weren't allowed to torture them, so none of the sort of Spanish Inquisition stuff that you read about. But they were allowed to keep them walking for 3 days and not let them sleep. So it was sort of torture by the back door. And also at that point, when you hanged someone, they didn't have the trapdoor that you see in Pirates when they're killing all of the people in the third one. You just hung by the neck until you strangled. Your neck never broke. And that's where the first stanza of this comes from. Another witch. If you're lucky, your friends come and hang on your legs. It's shorter then, no half words choking out of you in midair. More often, though, they're up there with you. Friends, I mean. Neighbours, too, swinging in a wind too heavy to feel. I talked too much, asked for what I could not have. They said, could not have. I said, please. But I said some other things, too. It's only natural. In the dark, no bed, bit of straw if you're lucky. They ask you to talk some more and more. Had a kitten once, name of Jack, poor thing. Eyes still blue, no mum. And me, no kids, I thought. Why not? There's been no purring in the night for me now, not for years. Fed him milk, kept hanging on. I was annoyed and proud both day he was strong enough to draw blood. Grew to be a regular terror. Got run over by a cart one day. Cartwheel came off. John broke his leg in the tumble. Never saw him curse, change shape, or ride through the night. John, that is. The cat either. Oh, beg pardon, your worship, but after 3 days without sleep, I can't tell you from the devil either. Now it's just a matter of revenge, or not. There's Alice. She looked at me sideways the other day. And Janet, she thinks it's funny being old. Couple of others, too. Known 'em for years. We're friends sometimes. Sometimes, well, that's how it goes. You choose who you want with you for that last time, for the last meeting, for the thick, slow shading into black. The next one is called Phantom Pains. And all you really need to know about this one is that it is considered bad luck to cut down a hawthorn tree. They are said to be sacred to the fairies, and horrible things will happen to you. So this takes that and then plays with the idea of a curse down to the 7th generation. It also deals with feminist issues of what it means to be a poet and a woman and things like that. Phantom pains. It happened the week after I chopped down the hawthorn. A knife slip, a welter of blood, and time shifts. Woolen clothes, straw prickling my skin, I moan in a smoky half-light. A beldam crouches at my feet, encouraging me to breathe. This is the time I die in childbirth. My husband is a woodcutter. 100 years later, my brother is taken by fairies. Mother and father talk in whispers through the night, and mother cries. My best enemy, Janet Clark, tells me he's run off to sea or to London. The story changes with each telling. The important thing is he doesn't want us, and it hurts. But father hangs horseshoes and buries a witch bottle under the threshold for good measure. When the next baby is a girl, and she deformed, even Janet is silenced. Father cuts down a stand of thorn in revenge. I go to town to be apprenticed, and the house burns. I am shunned as bad luck. Later still, I take to dancing in fairy rings, bedecked with ribbons and the witching smile of youth. Lovers and swains, I leave no hayrick undisturbed, no bed of moss untried. The man I marry is understanding, perhaps more than I deserve, and we wed in May with blossom everywhere, before I start to show. The child is healthy, but I suffer the wages of sin. That time, it's plague. Hardly any rest before the world spins, and I remember Paris and all its tumult, its shame and glory. We cheer Madame in the square and plant thorn on the graves to keep the bastards quiet. Britannia rules the waves. A navy wife, I wax and wane with the fortunes of the sea. Guilty, he throws trinkets over his shoulder to appease, gewgaws, curios, fetishes, anything ornate that takes his interest. I don't know what half the carvings are, but I suspect, especially when visiting Professor coughs and refuses to take tea in the front room. Superstition spreads like wildfire. My husband turns merchant, transfers to India. I go with. Cholera. Now there is the hum of white lights and pungent antiseptic. Voices murmur, then chitter, and I open my eyes. My neighbor found me on the floor, summoned, she said, by an unearthly shriek. I'm in a thick fug of morphine. My words come out mutterings, imprecations, poetry. No one knows plants like I do. Sometimes a ball flies into the marjoram and the kids dare each other to fetch it. Before they do, I come to the gate. They shuffle. I could offer flowers, pearls, cookies, but they want only one thing. I point down the road with the fingers I no longer have, shout, and hurl the ball past them like a curse. Delighted, they scatter. A cat weaves around my legs, cementing the effect. I go in. I make tea. Night comes. As I said at the beginning, I'm a disabled poet, which means that any given point in time I'm in a lot of pain, and I write some poems about that. And this one has just been accepted by the American Journal for Nursing, which is a bit of a breakthrough for me. And it's called Chronic. Last night, I left my friends at their table, knowing I had just the time to get home before I was sick again. Later, in my white, tile-boundaried room, crying out despite myself, I remember the advice of a friend now dead. Breathe in the pain. Breathe out the pain. I can't explain any more than that. And it's true, you can't explain the way existence coalesces to a breath, then another, thick lungs working to give you all that is afforded in this life, a little grace. The way the only fear becomes not breathing, And which of us, in our own time, can say, I have not known that? I also write a lot of fairy tales, or rewrite a lot of fairy tales. I'm a revisionist, and to revise something literally means to see it again, or to see it again in a new way. If any of you have seen the Stephen Sondheim musical Into the Woods, you'll know there's many earlier versions of the myth of Cinderella, the fairy tale of Cinderella. And in the earlier versions, her mother dies, and she plants a branch on her mother's grave, and it grows into a tree. And there is no fairy godmother. The tree actually gives her all she wants so that she can go to the ball. So this is called Cinderella's Mother. The amber light branches and streams over the tree on the grave. An ash girl becomes a princess again, casts aside her years of duty for a short night of chandeliers and dancing. When Ella marries and moves to the palace, the tree settles into being itself. No more teenage demands, no more salty rain. A little Jenny Wren builds a nest and brings up her broods, never favoring one child above another. Excuse me. I stand up and sit down so much, it's like being in church. Right, this is another England, America. The first one this time is the English one. And it does follow on from the previous one, but I don't want to say exactly how because it'll spoil the ending. It's called Lost to View, and it was published in the Connecticut Review last year. 1. Now, as she looks through the window, the hills spin clouds and milkweed trails that settle and shift in strands that vanish when they've stretched too far. She looks at her cooking, a bowl of egg whites, unbeaten, a sad pile of lemon zest, and knows the truth isn't here. Pushing her hair back with one hand, other on the small of her back, she stretches. Weary muscles pull and strain, and a yawn breaks over her like a wave. 2. The day can only get shorter. She rummages in the garage, and under the tent, still not packed from last season, she finds her bicycle. She doesn't mind the rusty old-fashionedness of it, the willow basket for shopping, the arcane ritual to be performed with the gears every time, before each outing, if it isn't going to lock the gears. She bends, texts the tires, frowns, fetches the pump, feels the pressure grow under her hand. Satisfied at last, she wheels out, only just remembering to close the door behind her. Through the window, she can see her keys on the table. She consigns them to hell and flies, feet pumping to the vanishing point. Her body works, her mind soars. Kitchens and bills, debts and petty worries spool off into blanketing mists. Like thread, her life unwinds until she is just blood and sweat, a pulse of heat in the crisp cold, a flash of rusty purple traveling at speed. She is a microclimate, her atmosphere thinning with each breath. Her gasps rise to the summit, and she strives for freedom, or what remains after tears, sex, and mortgages. The mist obscures the plains, and she is safe, another moat on ancient islands. Inland seas stretch on. 3. In her time here, she has seen rabbits flow over the ridge like treacle, larks shiver and huddle in the firs. Enterprising buzzards, too damp to fly but hungry, stalk proudly and feast on worms. 3 sheep pass, and then a minute, and a month-old lamb lost in a tangle of bracken bleats, its mother unsympathetic and hungry, moving on and lost to view. She remembers, stretches, turns to face the downward path, rides slowly, hand heavy on the brake, spirals down. No obstacle but expectation. Falling dusk reveals the windows lit, a figure waiting, her daughter whipping meringue, watching the dock fall, and idly stripping a lemon of zest. Skywise, the first stanza is about the broad fields in New England and how they've got the Indian paintbrushes, the red and yellow flowers. Skywise, 1. An open field, golden, fretted with intermittent rows of red, purple. She lies side-pressed into the earth to feel it grow and breathe. The wind begins to blow, disturbing the heat haze and riffling her still thoughts. Now the rustle of the stalks whispers percussion to the cicada's heavy drone. They memorialize their brief lives in these sounds of summer after 17 years, dark below ground. 2. As many women have lain here, she thinks, as beats of heart in a country minute, relishing the racket, quiet in comparison to rushing dogs and children, the yowl of the cat as it's stepped on again. The farmhouse is just out of sight, but in her mind she sees it rising from its stone foundation, square, 2-story, painted once each generation, whether it needs to or not. The yard, tough grass and dirt, trodden by decades of hooves, feet and tractors. The barn, ridge sagging, that'll need to be fixed before first freeze. Swifts fly in and out of the hayloft at dusk. Beneath, the heavy uneasiness of the animal fades to placidity. All that waits, and has done, since the roof-raising parties laughed and swore 200 years ago or more. She rolls onto her back and squints, counts clouds, seeks perhaps the sky's clarity. Startled by the harsh, cracked call of a crow or a jay, she takes wing, flies free as breath into unwanted heights, some half-forgotten song from her childhood bursting from her lips. Here, there is no weight but memory. As long as she eludes herself, she is wholly one in the accumulated time of centuries. 3. A dog fox bends his way through the grass and finds an unlikely log. He sniffs, catching every scent, the breeze, crushed flowers, warmed earth. She smells of muguets and cold cream. He nudges her spilled hair to see if it's edible, takes the strap of her shoe between his teeth. When she awakes, he's an arm's length away. Both blink, a heartbeat, maybe 2, and he kicks up his heels, vanishes without looking back. She sits and plaits her once dark hair, stands and stretches. Her sandals useless. Barefoot, light of heart, she walks back. The flat blue sky stretches above like a prayer. Home stretch. I'm going to end it with Life in Captivity, which is the title piece of the chapbook that's over there. And then what has become my signature piece. It's called Pharaoh's Concubine. So, Life in Captivity. Shaggy and shambolic, my lion arises from his slumber and greets the day with a shuddering yawn. Great mane haloed by the light, he pads and pads in circles to orient himself, touching everything to make sure it's where he left it. At times like this, he's best left on his own. Later, he will stalk into my kitchen sanctum, rattle the cupboards, spill the coffee, and regally announce that we are out of cornflakes and that the dog has run off with his slippers. It's a difficult life, poor thing. Pharaoh's Concubine. Of course he was divine. He said so. There are many types of sacrifice. I was 13, just. Pretty, straight nose, long neck, a way of speaking. So they said. Just shy, really. All the gold, the pomp, the myrrh-laced ceremonies, the solemn and smoky intonations, all the choreographed apparitions cowed me, as, I suppose, it was meant. When at last he came to see me, I was shocked to see 2 arms, 2 legs, and not a falcon's head or even a jackal's, but slightly uneven teeth, dark, soft eyes, and a pimple, expertly disguised. I smiled. The years passed in rich, encoded rituals. We both aged. Both, it turned out, kept our figures. When at last his car left him, I wept and was passed on. And now, listening to the litanies in the new temple, praising his ineffable divinity, I sing the words and do all that I ought. But sometimes, when I watch Ra's solar bark passing, I can't help wondering if, when they weigh my soul, he'll be clear-skinned and waiting, and if he still snores. Thank you.